It's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Welcome to another edition of Q&A with the Coach. Today, we have a question from Ola, who says, Coach, what is your opinion about the upcoming boxing fight, Thor versus Eddie? Oh, that's not upcoming anymore. This is an old question from a couple weeks ago, it seems. The fight already happened. I did see it, and I have some things to say about it, ex post facto. But Ola says, is it good for boxing or a sign of decline in the sweet science? It seems celebrity fights get most attention these days. Do you have any predictions? Well, I can't really give you a prediction since the fight happened already, but I think if that fight happened when it was first scheduled to happen, Eddie probably would have won. And here's why. Because back then, Thor didn't really have any boxing experience, and Eddie had a little bit. And I could see Eddie was a very aggressive fighter, not a great technician. I mean, neither of them are great technicians, but Eddie was a very aggressive fighter. And aggressive fighters tend to overwhelm inexperienced fighters, in spite of the physical advantages that they may have. And Thor had a bunch of physical advantages, height, reach in particular. Now, if you watch Thor's first couple fights, I mean, he didn't really understand how to use those tools, but he got better. In fact, he got a lot better. In fact, seeing how far Thor has come with his boxing technique, again, I mean, he's still at an amateur level, but he's come a very, very long way. And yeah, man. So what we saw was the aggressive guy trying to rely on that raw aggression that he beat up smaller guys with. Let's just put it out there. Eddie was beating up guys half his size. But he went in there with a certain confidence. But when he finally fights a guy, not just his size, but bigger than him, it's a different story. And the fact that Thor had a couple of fights under his belt and had a little bit of experience and knew what it was like getting hit, and it wasn't so much a shock to his system when Eddie's heavy fists landed on him, and he was able to, get up and dust himself off and be like, yeah, okay, let's go. Let's keep it going. As opposed to, going through that thing most human beings do the first time they get punched and freezing like, oh, I didn't like that at all. What do I do? Right? So a little bit of experience goes a long way, man. It really does. And that made all the difference in the world for Thor. So we saw a guy who at that point was able to capitalize on an understanding of his reach that he didn't have before. And he's able to weather a storm of aggression from Eddie Hall that he wasn't able to before. It's a very interesting fight. Now on to your other questions about celebrity fights and how they're taking over boxing, if you will. Everybody knows what boxing is, and not everybody knows how to box. And very few people outside of boxing fans and boxing historians can name more than 6 boxers. They just can't. They know Mike Tyson. They know Muhammad Ali. They might be able to name a few others like Lomachenko, Floyd Mayweather. Maybe 1 or 2 others. But, yeah, man. There was a fascinating little clip I saw on Instagram a few weeks ago, and man, it just made me laugh, made me chuckle. It was this 2-part video series. The first part, they showed a clip of a pro boxer, forget the dude's name, not a well-known guy, right, but really good record, something like 40 wins and 5 or 6 losses, but not a guy most casuals have heard of. And this is the case, there are thousands of great boxers out there you've never heard of. Guys who've won 40 fights, mostly by knockout, and because they have more than 1 loss on their record, are just brushed off as a nobody. Because they don't have a world title, they're brushed off as a nobody. Because that's kind of how the sport of boxing works, unfortunately, unless you're the best of all time, unless you're the champion of the world multiple times over, nobody seems to care except for the true fans of the sport of boxing. Anyway, so they take this guy, not a big name that any casual would know, but a 40-6 pro boxer, and he's hitting the heavy bag. And the caption says something like, yeah, this is my buddy, he's thinking about getting into boxing, he's hitting the bag, What do folks out there in internet land, what kind of advice would you give him about his technique? And, of course, the undefeated keyboard ninja warriors of the internet come out. They go, oh, yes, his hands are too low. His footwork is non-existent. He has no power. All of these things that they say to everybody. Man, if you want to hear these comments, make a video of yourself hitting a heavy bag. It doesn't matter how good or how bad you look. The little worms of the internet will crawl out and be like, you have no power here. And he got all these comments, all these internet ninja boxing experts are backseat driving, telling him everything he's doing wrong and how much he sucks, and he would get annihilated by an amateur, let alone a professional. He should just give up now. He sucks. And then it was revealed, the big reveal, to all these posers, who this guy is. This guy, 40 wins by knockout, only 6 losses. You've never heard of him. He's a professional. He's a fairly high-level pro. And they're like, let me just... It was delicious. Oh, man, that was delicious to see. So, if... folks out there, I know a lot of my viewers, they put up videos of themselves hitting the heavy bag and they ask for advice from the folks out there on the internet, and they've heard those exact words, you have no footwork, keep your hands up, you have no power, blah, blah, blah. And then they feel bad about themselves, and they're like, oh man, maybe I do suck. Ignore those voices and just get out there and train and focus on improving, right? What does this have to do with Eddie Hall and celebrity boxers? The point is, casuals don't know who the real boxers are. They don't. They know who Thor is. They know who Eddie is. They know who celebrities are. I mean, they might know who Logan and Jake Paul are. What other celebrity boxers do we have? If there was a famous actor who decided he wanted to box, if Tom Cruise, for example, decided he wanted to box, well, yeah, the world wouldn't stop talking about it. And I heard about my friend Matt Grant. He recently earned his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Awesome Jiu-Jitsu guy. He's a multiple-time IBJJF world champion in all the belt colors, and just won his division in the black belt division, IBJJF. Forget the specific tournament, somewhere over in California, I think. And on the same mat was Mario Lopez, the actor who played A.C. Slater in Saved by the Bell, if you remember that show. And, man, Mario is almost 50 years old and still looks like... Actually, in some ways, he looks younger than he did back on Saved by the Bell. It's weird. It's uncanny. But he's doing jiu-jitsu now. I think he's a blue belt. And he's out there competing, and he ends up getting disqualified for some questionable decision, and some people are saying, but people are debating over this. People are getting into debates on the internet about whether or not this blue belt masters division match is what was a legitimate call or not. And man, I'm just trying to imagine what it's like being Mario Lopez. Like I can't have a normal jiu-jitsu tournament without it being turned into a whole thing, man. Poor guy got DQ'd, and it's all over the internet now. Whereas everybody else who gets DQ'd, I mean, they're mad about it, like, but, the next day, nobody remembers, it's forgotten. But, man, poor Mario Lopez, man, the cross he must bear is the internet is going to talk about that DQ for the next couple weeks, probably. And, on that same mat, we have guys like, my friend Matt, who is a legitimate IBJJF multiple-time champion in every belt color in his division. And, man, nobody cares because nobody knows who Matt Grant is. But Mario Lopez, famous guy, actor, he's on TV. We recognize him. Ooh, star power. he gets DQ'd in his blue belt Masters match, and let's all chat about that forever and ever. Amen. You know, it's not about boxing. It's about name recognition. Unfortunately, I think Muhammad Ali understood this. I really think he did. I was watching a while back some of the press conferences he did with what's his name, Antonio Inoki, the professional wrestler, the catch wrestler, before their match. They did a mixed rules match, which I should make a video breakdown of this fight at some point, because neither fighter was really clear on the rules, and the rules were never really written down or specified, other than Antonio's going to wrestle or something, and Ali is going to box, and you can't do this, and you can't do this, and okay, let's go, and we're going to have the ref kind of make it up as he goes. And Gene LaBelle was there reffing, and it was a weird fight, and Antonio kept dropping down, doing these sweeping drop kicks off of his back, and Ali kept like climbing up on the ropes like, what are you doing, man? This is supposed to be a fight. What's happening here? But the pre-fight press conferences were interesting because Ali understood that celebrity sells fights. Memorable characters sell fights, and oh boy, he was trying to make that fight memorable. He comes out with a what do you call that? A crutch, and he's like speaking in verse like, "You're gonna need this after this fight." And I don't remember the exact line, but he was a showman, an absolute showman. He understood how casuals work. Boxing fans don't make boxers rich. Casuals do. Because there's a lot more of them. And if you got 1 million people to give you $1, you're a millionaire. But how many true, die-hard boxing fans are there out there who are going to give you $1? They're a tiny, tiny percentage. They're a drop in the bucket. So is this good for boxing? It was good for that particular boxing event. Boxing as a sport, boxing's never going away. It's just an integral part of what any combat sport that involves punching is. I mean, even if the sport of boxing was banned from the earth, boxing would still exist. It would exist in perpetuity through mixed martial arts and kickboxing and Muay Thai. All the boxing trainers, they would still have jobs, man. They would keep training these other fighters. They would adapt and change some things, but boxing would still exist. It always has, man. But boxing isn't just one thing. It's not just one company called the Boxing Company. There's no one unified boxing title. There are a whole bunch of them. There's the WBA, the WBC, the too many to name, man. And there are way more promoters than that. And the really smart fighters, the rich ones, like Floyd Mayweather, for example, he is his own promoter. Because he understands that's how you make the real money. You don't make the real money working for the man, working for the promoter, getting what he decides to give you. You make the money being the promoter. And then you can pay yourself whatever the heck you want, depending on the gate. So is it good for boxing? It was good for that particular boxing promoter that put on that particular show, because he understood the star power, the draw power that Thor and Eddie, the two biggest, strongest dudes in the world, presumably would have on his boxing event. Man. So is it the fault of celebrity stealing the thunder, stealing the attention from boxers, that the guys like that dude who was 40-6 in his pro boxing career, who got laughed at by these nobodies on the internet telling him he didn't know how to box and would get creamed by an amateur based on his performance on a heavy bag, that they didn't even know who he was. I mean, not everybody is as talented as Muhammad Ali, and I'm not talking about his boxing skill set. I'm talking about his promotional skill set, his ability to sell a fight. Because that fight, the actual fight between Ali and Inoki, it was a boring fight, man. It was one of the most boring fights in the history of fights. Man, it was right up there with Dan Severn versus Ken Shamrock when they paced around and didn't throw a punch because I guess the fight happened in Detroit, I think. And the police, before the event, said, if either of you throws a punch at each other, you're going to jail or some nonsense like that, because this is when the government was cracking down on MMA back in the day before they even called it MMA. But that was a boring fight. 30 minutes of nothing. But the pre-fight antics, man, Ali knew how to sell that boring fight. He knew how to make that boring fight seem like the most interesting thing in the world. Man, the press conference took place at the same time as a dinner. It was like a dinner press conference. And the fighters and the promoters are all up there eating their dinner as they're answering the questions. And Ali, he's looking over at Inoki, and he grabs the microphone and he says he can't even chew his meat right because he's so nervous. Look at him. Look at him. It was great, man. He was a showman. Not everybody has that talent. If you get into the fight business and understand it's a business, and a big part of a business is advertising, you have to understand most fight promoters are absolutely terrible at advertising, so you're going to have to take that burden upon yourself. Thanks to the advent of social media, you got a microphone you can grab at any time and start talking into to let the world know what's up and why they should watch you and why they should care. So all you young up-and-coming fighters out there wondering, man, how am I going to make it in the world of boxing or MMA or whatever? How am I going to make a paycheck? You don't have to just hope and beg and wait for handouts from promoters. Get out there and promote yourself. Thanks for watching. Now get out there and train. Brought to you by xmartial.com. Use my code Ramsey10 for 10% off everything. That's xmartial.com. High quality training gear and fight apparel.